And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is Brewing with Underwhelming Commanders, episode 35. And these episodes seem to be getting more and more challenging for me. I think I'm running out of the easy options or easier options because none of these are really that easy when it comes to these Underwhelming Commanders. And I'm really getting down to the bottom of the barrel here with some of the suggestions. It's getting a little bit tougher, but I'm always game for a challenge. So coming in at number 3 is Captain Ripley Vance. 2 and a red human pirate, 3/2. Whenever you cast your third spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Captain Ripley Vance. Then it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So Captain Ripley Vance is what I would define as a underwhelming commander. This to me is the very definition of an underwhelming commander because you have an ability that is really hard to actually work around and the payoff isn't even that great, right? Sometimes you can have an ability that's really easy to do, like whenever you gain life or whenever something happens, that's really, really easy to do. So the payoff doesn't have to be that good. And sometimes you'll have an ability that's really hard to do, but the payoff is fantastic. This is a case where casting a third spell each turn is really, really tough to do, especially in mono red. And then the payoff is just okay. It's not great, right? It's not game ending. It's not going to give you some huge advantage. So this really, truly is an underwhelming commander for sure. So I'll throw some suggestions of what I got. First of all, of course, we have to have Vance's blasting cannons. These are, I imagine, Captain Ripley Vance's personal blasting cannons. Obviously, it's going to fit the theme. So at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast that card this turn. So you get that impulse draw. But of course, the part that really fits what we're doing, when you cast your third spell in a turn, you may transform Vance's blasting cannons. And the back is pretty darn good, right? It's a land that taps to add a red, but also you can pay 2 and a red and it deals 3 damage to any target. Not too bad to have a lightning bolt on your land. So that's got to go in the deck for sure, because when we trigger our commander's ability, it will obviously trigger this as well. So it's just free value there. Chandra's Incinerator, as I have mentioned so many times before, and most recently on 5 cards that should see more commander play, this is a card that definitely should, because it goes in any deck that is red where you have damage being thrown around other than combat damage, right? This is going to be fantastic with our commander. It costs 5 and a red, but this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. So if we can deal some non-combat damages, this guy is going to cost a lot less. But most importantly though, when a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, which of course our captain will be doing, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So what this card allows you to do is get double duty out of all of your damage that you're throwing around, right? It basically becomes a win con in the deck, because with your commander's ability, I imagine you're probably going to be throwing the damage at your opponent's creatures a lot. This way you don't have to waste it. Now you can go face with all of your damage. You're going to throw, say, 4 damage at an opponent's creature. Instead, you can throw it directly at your opponent and hit the creature you were going to target as well. So it's an absolute auto include in this deck. I found a couple of backgrounds that are fantastic fits here. And again, originally I wasn't super impressed with the whole background idea, but man, did a lot of these fit really, really great in the 99 of a lot of decks. So Dragon Cultist, 4 and a red background. Commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step, if a source you control deals 5 or more damage this turn, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token flying. Now I know this doesn't seem like a great fit here, but I think it is, because our commander, when its ability triggers the first time, you're going to put a counter on it, and then its power will be 4, and we're going to throw 4 damage around. So all we need is a 1 more power boost, right? Once we get up to 5 power, now every time we trigger our commander's ability, it's going to be dealing 5 or more damage, and that's all that Dragon Cultist cares about. Whenever a source you control deals 5 or more damage, you're going to spit out that 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So again, it's just added value to something that we are already doing. Livonya, Cultist of Tiamat, 2 and a red dragon shaman 1/3. This is a background commander. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gets +X/+0 until end turn, where X is that spell's mana value. This is an absolute auto include with Captain Ripley Vance. Again, this is another card that made this very underwhelming commander a lot better, because now when you cast that third spell, or let's say all 3 spells that we cast in a turn were non-creature, every single time we cast one, even if it's only 1 mana, is going to be boosting our commander's power, which of course is what we want, so that we get that bigger payoff when we get get to the third spell. Tavern Brawler is another background that I think is a great fit here. 2 in a red background. Commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step, exile top card of your library. This creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the card's mana value. You may play that card this turn. So again, this is serving double duty in the deck. I think this is an auto include in a Captain Ripley Vance deck because first of all, it's impulse draw, which is always going to be nice to have. Casting 3 spells in a turn means you're probably going to be emptying your hand really fast, and red isn't exactly fantastic with the card draw. So impulse draw is going to be important here to be able to cast those 3 spells per turn. But also, this creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn, right? So we're going to be getting that power bump as well. Fantastic fit in the deck, I think. Of course, in red, you're going to have to be doing that cantrip style of stuff, I believe. Again, red's not super fantastic with the card draw, but the cantrip stuff works really, really well. So even if the spell isn't necessarily important in the deck, like Accelerate or Crash Through, right? Giving creatures trample and haste. I mean, it might be okay to give your commander trample or haste. Maybe you can attack with it after you've already done doing your 3 spells per turn. There is that possibility as well, but these are cantrips, right? And for those who don't know, that again is just a magic lingo term. What it means is I cast a spell and it has a card draw on it, so it replaces itself. Cantrips are really, really good for storming off or when you want to cast lots of spells in a turn, which of course we do in this deck. Unleash Fury is not a cantrip, but it is another way that we can throw more damage around, right? 1 in a red instant, double the power of target creature until end of turn. You got to be careful here, right? You do not want this to be your 3rd spell in the turn. You want this to be your 2nd spell, right? And part of playing a Captain Ripley Vance deck is if you're planning on casting the 3 spells per turn, make sure you do it in the correct order. If Unleash Fury is your 3rd spell cast in the turn, what's going to happen is your commander's ability is going to trigger because you've cast that 3rd spell. It will put a counter on itself, it will shoot something for damage, and then your Unleash Fury will resolve and double your commander's power. You don't want that. What you want is to cast this as the 1st or 2nd spell in the turn, double your commander's power, have that all resolved, and then get to your 3rd spell and have your commander trigger. So you do have to be careful there as well. Casting things for free is also a great way that we can do this, right? Sunbird's Invocation is a card that really powered its way into the Commander format when it first came out, has lost a little bit of popularity over the last few years, of course, because it's one of those cards that is 6 mana and doesn't impact the board right away, right? 6 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards of your library where X is the spell's mana value. You may cast a card reveal this way with mana value X or less without paying its mana cost, but the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So why this card is really good in the deck is because it is allowing you to cast stuff for free, right? And you got to be careful here. You got to make sure it actually says cast, because our commander actually says cast your 3rd spell. So you need abilities that are going to actually let you cast spells for free, which Sunbird's Invocation does. So if we cast a spell, that's going to be our 1st spell cast in the turn. Sunbird's Invocation is going to let us cast another spell for free. So now we've cast 2 spells in the turn. Now we only need 1 more. So this is going to be a great fit in the deck. Surge to Victory is, again, I think an auto include in a Captain Ripley Vance deck. It's a great card. It's a way to close out the game, really. But again, it's a cast, and you can exile target instant and sorcery card from your graveyard. Creatures you control get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is this card's mana value. That's pretty good. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player this turn, you copy the exiled card and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So of course, if we can connect with just a couple of creatures, right? Because of course, Surge to Victory is going to be at least our 1st spell cast in the turn. So all we have to do is connect with 2 creatures, and we're going to be casting 2 copies. That's actually casting. So it's going to trigger our commander. That's all we need. And if we can get something on this, like say a Crash Through, right? Now we're going to be getting all those cast triggers, but this is a cantrip, right? We're going to have a lot of cantrips in this deck. So this is going to be basically every creature we connect with, you get to draw a card as well. So really, really great fit in the deck, I think. Cascade will also work here because Cascade allows you to cast something for free. So Bloodbraid Marauder, for example, will have Cascade as long as I have Delirium. So when I cast my Bloodbraid Marauder, I've cast my 1st spell, and then whatever I cascade into will be my 2nd spell that I cast. So now I'm already up to 2 spells cast this turn for only 2 mana. So Cascade works really good here as well. Creative Technique is another great fit here that will pretty much automatically get you that 3rd spell cast per turn trigger, right? 4 in a red. Sorcery has Demonstrate, which means when you cast it, you may copy it if you choose an opponent who also gets to copy it. So what we can do is we can cast this, right? So we've already cast our our first spell per turn, and then we can copy it. Now, the copy is not a cast. I don't want to get people confused here. When you're copying a spell, you just put that copy on the stack. You're not actually casting it. You have to see that word cast, all right? We're going to let an opponent copy this spell. So what's going to happen is we get 2 resolutions of this spell. Now, when we resolve it, shuffle your library, then reveal cards from the top until you reveal a non-land card, exile that card, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost, okay? That's why this gets us to where we want to go, because we're going to cast Creative Technique. Now, we've cast 1 spell this turn. We're going to demonstrate, so we're going to let our opponent do it as well. We're going to resolve this spell twice because we get a copy of it. Again, the copy's not the cast, but the spell itself is allowing us to cast an exiled card without paying its mana cost. So we are going to cast 2 more spells this turn on top of our Creative Technique. So that will give us the 3 spells cast this turn. So this is going to be a great fit in the deck as well. So I think there actually is quite a bit of stuff to support this strategy. It's tough. You know, again, it's tough to cast 3 spells per turn, and then the payoff is just okay, not super great. This is certainly an underwhelming commander, but I think it can be a fun deck. And again, thankfully, there has been a lot of stuff come out recently that does support this commander. So give it a try if you want to. I think I gave you enough stuff to sort of get off to the races there. But moving on to number 2 this week, it is Tivash, Gloom Summoner. 5 and a black human warlock, 4/4 with lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, you may pay X life, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. If you do, create an XX black demon creature token flying. So this is one, came out in C21, and right away I knew it wasn't going to be a very popular commander. I could just tell. One of the things that sort of handicaps you about this ability is that if you gain life this turn, you may pay X life, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn, which means you have no control over the amount of life you pay. You have to pay the exact amount of life you gained. So if you gained 1 life, you create a 1/1 demon creature token. If you gained 5 life, you create a 5/5 demon creature token. You have no control there. It has to be the exact amount of life you gained this turn. What I think you want when you build this deck is to, first of all, ensure that you're getting that trigger on your end step. You want to guaranteed get it. Even if you've only gained 1 life this turn, you want to be able to at least create that 1/1 demon creature token with flying. He's not big, he's not scary, but at least you're getting something out of your commander's ability. Now, of course, your commander has lifelink, so you can just attack with your commander. If you connect, you can create a 4/4 demon creature token on your end step. That's pretty darn good. But of course, you probably don't want to be swinging with your commander all the time. It's just a 4/4, can die pretty easily in combat. So we want lots of other ways to do it, and passive life gain, life drain is what I would go with here. Stuff like Sanctum of Stone Fangs or Ill-Gotten Inheritance. Stuff that is just, we play it, it's an enchantment, it's going to gain us life every turn. We don't have to put any mana into it. We don't have to attack. We don't have to do anything. And the added bonus, it's going to drain our opponents a little bit as well, so it will get us towards victory, right? It's not a lot of life gain, but it is just enough to get us that trigger on our end step. So I would put a lot of effects like that in this deck just to ensure that we are getting that demon creature token on our end step, but also it helps us move towards victory. A little bit better of a one, and again, another card that was really popular in the format when it first came out, and I don't see it much anymore, is Twilight Prophet. 2 black vampire cleric. 2/4 with flying, has Ascend, which of course means if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the City's Blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the card's mana value. That is a fantastic ability, which is why everyone was shoehorning this card into their deck when it first came out. Don't really see it that much anymore, right? Basically, you get an extra card draw. So on your upkeep, if you have the City's Blessing, you get a free card draw, and then on top of that, you're going to drain your opponents for a bunch of life and probably gain a bunch of life yourself. Fantastic fit. So if you're looking for an option, this is a great one there for that sort of passive life gain, life drain. Cosmos Elixir is going to be a great fit here. 4 mana artifact at the beginning of your end step. Draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. That's pretty good. We are in a life gain deck, but because we are paying life, it might be difficult for us to get above 40. Nevertheless, if we're not above 40, we will gain 2 life. Now, why I think this is a good fit in the deck is because, of course, we can stack the triggers. Now, there's 2 ways you can do this. What our commander has is called a conditional triggered ability, right? At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn. So what that means is that if we did not gain life at all this turn, that ability will not go on the stack. It won't trigger at all. Our Cosmos Elixir at the beginning of end step will always trigger. So what will happen on our end step is our Cosmos Elixir will go on the stack. If we gained life this turn, our Tivash will go on the stack. If we did not gain life this turn, turn, our Tivash Gloom Summoner will not go in the stack because our Cosmos Elixir ability has not resolved yet and has not gained us life. So this is a way that we can gain life, also a way that we can draw cards, but if we've gained life this turn, if everyone's following along here, what we can do is we can make a bigger demon with our Cosmos Elixir, right? So our Tivash Gloom Summoner and our Cosmos Elixir will both trigger, and we let the Cosmos Elixir resolve first. So now we've gained 2 more life, right? Assuming we're not above our 40 life, in which case we'll draw a card. We gain 2 more life, and now we've added 2 to the size of the demon that we are creating, because you're going to pay X life, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn, and you just gained 2 more life. So that's going to stack on to the size of the demon that you are creating. So I think that's a really good fit in the deck. I think Clackbridge Troll is a great fit in this deck. I just love this card in general. It's a really fantastic card. Flavor-wise, everything about it I've always really liked. I always try to shoehorn this guy into decks. 3 black, Troll, 8/8 trample with haste. That's phenomenal. Even in a commander game, that's really phenomenal. Having a 8/8 trample haste creature for 5 mana. Of course, when it enters the battlefield, you're going to give an opponent 3/01 white goat creature tokens, which again, in a politics way, it can be really, really good because you can give it to the person that you don't want to attack. At the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, you tap it, gain 3 life, and draw cards. So this is just win-win in this deck for so many reasons. Obviously, we can swing with a giant creature and smack our opponents with it. They're probably not going to want us to, so they're going to sacrifice that creature. When they do, we get to gain 3 life and draw a card, and then of course we've gained 3 life, so now we can pay 3 life and make a 3/3 demon token on our end step if we want to. We are getting life gain triggers all the time, of course, so we got to put stuff in here like Well of Lost Dreams and Witch of the Moors. These are absolute auto includes because we're almost always going to be gaining life on our turn, so we can use these to draw cards. We can use them to make our opponents sacrifice creatures. Restless Bloodseeker and Silver Moat Ghoul, I think, are also great fits here, where they have life gain triggers right at the beginning of your end step. If you gain life this turn, create a blood token is pretty handy. So you could both chuck them in there. Of course, they're not super overwhelming, but we are in a mono black life gain theme here. So, you know, beggars can't be choosers. You got to use what you have at your disposal. Font of Agonies, of course, is an auto include here because we are also paying life all the time, right? Our commander's ability says you may pay X life, and Font of Agony says whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies. Then you can pay 1 and a black and remove 4 blood counters from Font of Agonies to destroy target creature. So even if we just use our commander, for example, we attack with it, it's a 4/4, has lifelink, we gain 4 life, then on our end step we pay 4 life, create a 4/4 demon token, put 4 blood counters on our Font of Agonies, and now we can pay 1 and a black to destroy a creature. Fantastic combo. These guys are a match made in heaven. We are creating tokens, so we want to put Idol of Oblivion in here as well, right? Let's not forget that. We are almost assuredly going to be creating a token on every one of our turns, so of course this just becomes tap draw card. I think Species Specialist is a great fit here because we are a little bit in Demon Tribal, and whatever you choose to do with those demon tokens is entirely up to you. Again, we might just be creating 1/1 demon tokens. We may be creating 2/2s, 3/3s, 4/4s. It's going to be all over the place, I would imagine. That's sort of the interesting thing about this deck. You could put a bunch of sack outlets in here. Either way, I think Species Specialist is a great fit because you're going to be creating lots of demon tokens. And of course, when Species Specialist enters the battlefield, you're going to choose a creature type, and whenever a creature of that type dies, you draw a card. So I'm going to choose Demon with my Species Specialist. Doesn't matter that they're tokens. Whenever those tokens are dying, I'm going to get to draw cards off of them. So I think that's going to be a good fit. Another fantastic fit, again, getting to the backgrounds, Cultists of the Absolute. This is an interesting, I saw this and I'm like, you know what? I actually think this is a really funny way to go with this deck. 1 black mana background. Commander creatures you control get +3/+3, flying, death touch, and ward, pay 3 life. That's pretty good, right? We've just turned our Tivash Gloom Summoner into a 7/7, right? And again, 7 is that magic number when it comes to commander damage. Flying, death touch, lifelink, ward, pay 3 life. That's pretty fantastic, right? But of course, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Oh well, I guess it's a good thing that we are constantly creating tokens with our commander that we can sacrifice to this ability. I think this is a fantastic fit with a Tivash, and no one is going to see this coming, right? Just 1 mana, I slap this down, and all of a sudden, I'm playing a Voltron deck with my Tivash Gloom Summoner. Really interesting. I also think Shadowheart Dark Justicar, fantastic fit as well. It's a background commander, 3 and a black, human elf cleric, 3/4, pay 1 and a black, tap, sacrifice another creature, draw X cards where X is that creature's power. So this is a great way to use those demon tokens that we are spitting out. Again, you can put any great sack outlet in this deck because you are spitting out those demon tokens all the time. So what this essentially becomes is however much life you've gained in the turn, you're drawing that many cards, right? Because if you've gained 4 life, you're going to make a 4/4 demon token, which you will then sacrifice to your Shadowheart, which will draw you 4 cards. So this basically transfers life gain into card draw. Fantastic fit in the deck, I think. This is an underwhelming commander for sure, I would say, but there is a lot you can do here, right? You're gaining life, you're paying life, you're creating demon tokens. Of course, if you're creating lots of tokens, there's always lots of ways to use that in black. I imagine if this was a Orzhov commander, white and black, it would be way more popular because the life gain, life drain stuff works a lot better in both of those colors. The mono black, I think, holds it back quite a bit, but it is pretty interesting, I think. There's a lot you could do here. Moving on to our number 1 commander this week, and again, I'll show you the poll just so you guys can see how it all played out. I guess it was kind of close between first and second, maybe not. Actually, there's about 50 vote difference there, so not really. And as you can see, it is Livonya Silone. I see these commanders win these polls and I think, how much of this is people really want to build this deck and they need suggestions, and how much of this is people just want to challenge me and see what I can do with it? This is certainly a very challenging one. One of those not so great commanders originally from Legends. Interestingly enough, this is one of those commanders that I gave a hard look at back in the day when I was looking at a Gruul deck and I wanted a really underwhelming commander that people would see and have no idea. Like, what is that? Never seen that before. But I didn't because I didn't really feel there was enough to build around. However, I've done what I can here to make this a interesting build aroundable commander. So Livonya Silone, 2 red, green, so 6 mana. Human warrior 4/4. So a 6 mana 4/4, not great. It has first strike, and it has legendary Landwalk. Now, of course, legendary Landwalk, very interesting, very unique ability. It is not entirely unique. I actually already did a commander on my Underwhelming Commanders video, Ayumi the Last Visitor, which also has legendary Landwalk. Now, of course, Landwalk is a very old ability, so for those who don't know what that means, what it means is if your opponent has a land of that type, your creature is unblockable, right? So Livonya Silone has legendary Landwalk, which means she's looking for legendary lands. If your opponent has a legendary land on the battlefield, your commander will be unblockable, and that can be pretty good. So I think the only way really to build this deck is a Voltron strategy, or a Voltron-y strategy, right? Our commander's only a 4/4, doesn't have a whole lot of abilities, so we don't want to go all in on the Voltron strategy, I don't think, but we do want to do it quite a bit. Having a commander that is unblockable is a huge advantage, obviously, when it comes to the Voltron strategy. However, we got to make sure it's unblockable, which means we have to make sure our opponents have legendary lands. Now, you're off to a pretty good start with this deck because there are a lot of just really popular legendary lands in the format, like Urborg and Yavimaya, right? You don't have to necessarily plan around this. You can just play the odds and hope your opponents do have a legendary land in play, which will often happen. If your opponent just happens to play a legendary land, there are lots of popular ones in the format, your commander's now unblockable. Phyrexian Tower, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, right? These are legendary lands that people play a lot in their commander decks that we might just luck out and our opponents will have. Those new ones from Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty like Boseiju and Takenuma, right? A lot of people play these ones. Now, of course, they might not play them as a land, they might channel them, but if at some point our opponents has just played these, now they have a legendary land, our commander's unblockable. So you're already up a little bit of an advantage here, you know, not a ton, but it is likely that one of your opponents at the very least is just going to play a legendary land at some point. However, we do want to plan around it a little bit. All of those lands I just named, I did shoehorn some of them in this deck because we can donate a legendary land to our opponents. I did this a little bit in that Ayumi the Last Visitor deck. Only option there was Gauntlets of Chaos, and this is a very important card in the format, I think, because it does the exchange thing colorlessly, right? And this is the only option for that. It's a 5 mana artifact, pay 5, it's a lot of mana, sacrifice Gauntlets of Chaos, exchange control of target artifact, creature, or land an opponent controls, and a permanent you control that shares one of those card types, destroy all, or is attached to those permanents. So this is the only colorless option for exchanging permanents in the Commander format, and that can be really important. Of course, blue does that really, really well. Green and red doesn't do it well at all. In fact, it doesn't do it, period. However, we do have red here, and what red does do a little bit is donate stuff. So for example, Harmless Offering, 2 and a red sorcery, target opponent gains control of target permanent you control. So this is not exchanging, you are losing value here because you're not swapping lands with your opponents, you're just going to give it to them, so you're ramping them, which isn't great, but the payoff is you're going to make your commander unblockable, so it can be worth it, right? So just to clarify, what we're doing here is one of the legendary lands that we have in play, we're going to donate it to our opponent so that now they control a legendary land and our commander becomes unblockable. Bazaar Trader is another way we can do this. 1 and a red goblin, 1/1. Tap, target player gains control of target artifact, creature, or land you control. So again, this is another way that we can donate a legendary land we control to one of our opponents so that our commander becomes unblockable. Now, of course, we need legendary lands to donate. I got Buzeju in here. I got Sokens in as well. Again, these are ones that they're going to be great. We can channel them if we want to, but if we've played them, now they're just normal lands that are tapping for normal mana, and donating these to our opponents isn't going to give them really any advantage at all other than the fact that we are ramping them. God's Eye, I put in here as well. Mikukoro, because they are legendary lands that we can donate to our opponents, and it's not really giving them an advantage. I mean, if they want to pay 2 and tap and each player draws a card, we're fine with that, no problem. They're good lands that we can put in our deck and we can have in play, but also we can donate them to our opponent without giving them a huge advantage, right? Getting back to our commander though, and what we can do to build around this ability, as I say all the time, whenever you're going after an underwhelming commander, let's look at that creature type, and our commander is a human and a warrior. So of course, the warrior is a popular creature type in the format. I put Bramblewood Paragon in here. I put Obsidian Battleaxe in here. Bramblewood Paragon is going to put a +1/+1 counter on each warrior we control that enters the battlefield, and then they will have trample if they have a counter on them. Obsidian Battleaxe is, in my opinion, just an auto-include if your commander is a warrior and you plan on attacking with it at all. 3 mana warrior equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has haste. That's pretty good. Whenever a warrior creature enters the battlefield, you may attach Obsidian Battleaxe to it. That's fantastic. So we put this guy down and then cast our commander. As soon as it comes into play, it automatically attaches to our commander. Our commander is now a 6/5 with haste, and we can immediately attack with it. That's pretty darn good. I put Haiku Yamazaki and Aki Ronin in this deck. This is, I thought, an interesting fit here because they have that whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone ability that we saw in Neon Dynasty. Aki Ronin is going to allow us to rummage, right? We're going to discard and draw. Haiku Yamazaki is going to allow us to cast an artifact card from our graveyard, which you would think is a little odd for this deck, but we are in a Voltron strategy, which means we got lots of equipment, which means we got lots of artifacts. So I think it's going to be very likely that we do have artifacts in our graveyard that we can just cast from our graveyard if we want to. So this can be great value in the deck. I got Kargan Intimidator in this deck. Fantastic fit. 1 and a red human warrior, 3/1. Cowards can't block warriors. Pretty great for our deck. If our opponents have any cowards in play, we're going to be good to go, right? But we can pay 1, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 till end of turn. That's definitely usable. It is a possibility that we are going to be attacking with our other creatures, not just our commander. Target warrior gains trample in end of turn, which can also be usable for our non-commander warriors, but also our commander if it doesn't have the legendary land walk. You know, there is a possibility that our opponents won't have legendary lands, so we will want to give our commander trample. But the ability that we will be using most though, target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. Again, if our commander doesn't have legendary land walk, this is another way to make it so that our commander can't get blocked, because of course, cowards can't block warriors. I threw some other really good warriors in the deck like Jedit Ojanen of Afrava, 3 green cat warrior, 5/5, has forest walk, and whenever Jedit Ojanen of Afrava attacks or blocks, create a 2/2 green cat warrior creature token with forest walk. So why did I put this in the deck? It is a warrior. It's a warrior that's creating warrior tokens. So it's going to fit that warrior theme. And if we have any of the other warrior stuff in play, it's going to fit. So I thought it was nice as a little bit of a backup. This is a great Voltron commander as well. So we can put a bunch of stuff on our Jetted Ojanen of Afrava. If our commander isn't around, it does have forest walk, which again will make it sort of unblockable if our opponents have forest. We also have Yavimaya in this deck as well. Again, another legendary land that we can donate to our opponents that also happens to make all lands in a forest. It's going to make our Jetted Ojanen unblockable as well. So I thought there was just a lot of reasons why this guy fit really well in the deck. One thing that we will for sure be doing in this deck is connecting a lot, right? And connecting, when I say that, means we're going to be hitting our opponents with our creatures. So of course we need stuff like Orin Frostfang and Nature's Will so that we can get those connect triggers. Whenever we connect with a creature, we'll get the draw card of our Orin Frostfang, and also our Nature's Will allow us to untap all our lands. So on our second main phase, we can do a bunch of stuff. I also put a couple of my personal favorites in here, One with Nature and Mark of Sakiko. So One with Nature says whenever we connect with that creature, we'll get to search our library for basic land card, put it into play, tap. That's fantastic. Mark of Sakiko will allow us to add an amount of green mana equal to that damage that we're dealing. And until end of turn, it doesn't empty out of our mana pool. So again, on our second main phase, we'll have a bunch of extra mana that we can use to do stuff. And of course, I got the usual suspects in here when it comes to Voltron. I got Bear Umbra, Basilisk Collar. I thought having Vigilance was good, so I put 4 Bear's Blade in here. This is one that I tend to go after whenever I build Voltron strategies. I think it's pretty good. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has Vigilance and Trample. So again, now our commander is going to be a 7/4. And again, 7 is that magic number, which is pretty important. Having Vigilance and Trample can be good too. Again, if our commander isn't unblockable, of course, Trample is important. Vigilance is more important though, because I think it's really important in a Voltron strategy to give your commander Vigilance so that you're not getting hit on the swing back, right? If I'm tapping my commander to attack all the time, just leaving myself open to get smacked. If I have this giant creature, why not give it Vigilance so that I can attack with it? And then also I have it up as a really good blocker as well, right? I put in Still Energy in here as well. 1 green mana aura enchant creature. Enchanted creature can attack as though it has haste. So of course, that's what we want to be doing in this deck. Also, we can pay 0 and untap enchanted creature. This is something you probably wouldn't think to put in a Voltron strategy, but again, I think it's a great fit. We throw this on our commander, we can attack right away, and then after we've attacked, we can pay 0 and untap our commander, so now we can leave it up as a blocker. The modified theme works great here, of course, and we had a lot of really great stuff, again, from Neon Dynasty in red and green that fits the modified theme. In other words, we're putting auras and equipments on our creatures. So I threw Kodam of the West Tree in the deck, I threw Invigorating Hot Spring in here as well. I think those are great fits because we are sort of inadvertently doing the modified theme here. We are also doing a power 4 or greater theme here a little bit, I thought. Again, I was sort of looking for more things to do in the deck other than just I'm doing a Voltron commander. Our commander does have a power 4 or greater, so do a bunch of the other creatures in our deck. So I got Garruk's Uprising in here, of course, which is a great fit in any deck where you want to be attacking a lot. It's going to allow us to draw cards, and it's going to give our creatures trample. Goreclaw, again, I thought was a fantastic fit here. 3 and a green, bear 4/3. Creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. So this is going to make our commander cost 2 less to cast. So now our commander is only going to cost red, red, green, green. That's a heck of a lot better than 6 mana, I think. And whenever Goreclaw attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 and gains trample. So that's going to work with our commander as well. So fantastic fit in the deck. Certainly an underwhelming commander, no question about it. There's not a ton going on here that you can work around. I did what I could with it. I think I made a pretty interesting deck. You know, it's mostly, I guess, a Voltron deck, but there is a lot of other interesting creatures that you can throw those auras and equipments on as well. You don't just have to pile them on your commander. You can go 2 or 3 creatures wide if you want to. If your commander gets killed, maybe you don't want to pay 8 mana for it, you could throw Jetted Ojanen in there and throw some stuff on him as well. I think it's a pretty good deck. The deck list, of course, is in the description below if any of you guys want to check it out. And of course, if you like the way I build decks, I do it on my Patreon. I build deck techs for my patrons. I also do deck doctor videos there as well. If you're interested in that at all and supporting this channel, my Patreon link is in the description below as well. Feel free to check it out. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.